5 armed gang members had come to terrorize the town of Mesa Springs. In this small town of 2,000 people, there was no police, no one to resist, or so they thought. There was just one thing they didn't know. The owner of the old auto repair shop on Main Street, Joe Martinez, was actually one of Army Ranger's most deadly commanders. And tonight, he was about to prove that some retired warriors never really retire. Welcome to the Untold Stories. Before we dive into this incredible tale of silence, resilience, and unexpected heroism, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe true protectors never abandon the places they call home, hit that subscribe button. Because this story will show you that heroes sometimes wait in the most unexpected places. On Main Street in Mesa Springs, Arizona, there was only one auto repair shop. The Martinez Auto Repair sign hung faded by the sun on peeling painted walls. From inside came constant sounds of metal, wrench squeaks, and the breathing of a man working quietly. Joe Martinez was 62 years old and had been running the shop for the past 20 years. Every morning he'd open the doors at 6:30. Every evening he'd close at 6 o'clock. He never took breaks, never went on vacation. Working was the only sign that he was still alive. Joe looked exactly like what the townspeople expected. Graying hair, sun-weathered skin, oil-stained work coveralls. His hands were the kind that never let go of motor oil stains. He didn't talk much, only had necessary conversations with customers. People called him Quiet Joe, but nobody knew why he was so quiet. Nobody asked where the scars on his hands came from, and nobody wondered why he had nightmares every night when he slept. Joe Martinez's past was buried so deep that sometimes even he tried to forget it. But some memories never disappear, some skills never rust, and some men, no matter how hard they try to hide, can never kill the warrior inside them. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Joe had opened his shop, tuned the radio to the country music station, brewed his coffee. The first car came at 8 o'clock, Mrs. Patterson's old Chevrolet, making engine noise again. Joe nodded, didn't speak. He looked at Danny's truck minus 2010 Ford F-150 engine problem. But Joe was mainly studying Danny, his movement style, posture, the way he scanned the environment. All carried traces of military training. Iraq or Afghanistan? Joe asked suddenly. Danny was surprised. Excuse me? Which front did you fight on? Danny hesitated. Afghanistan. 3 tours. How did you ... Joe didn't answer. He opened the truck's hood and started looking at the engine. But he was thinking to himself, another broken soldier, another one returning from life, just like himself. Danny left his truck for repair and came back the next day. Joe was working quietly, but Danny asked permission and started helping instead of leaving. The young man was knowledgeable about engines, quick with his hands. Where did you learn? Joe asked. In the Army, I was in charge of the motor pool. I repaired everything from Humvees to tank engines. Joe nodded. It was the first time he'd had such a long conversation with a customer. How did you end up here? Danny asked while working. Joe stopped. Nobody had asked him this question in 20 years. Long story? I have time. If the truck will be ready tomorrow, I have nowhere else to be today. Joe studied him. Danny's eyes held genuine curiosity. Not judgmental, just a desire to understand. Maybe after 20 years, it was time to talk. I used to be in the military too, Joe said quietly. When? Long time ago. 1982, 2002. Danny thought. 20 years. What branch were you in? Joe hesitated. Then, Rangers. Danny's hand stopped. RANGE is elite unit. The toughest training, the hardest operations. Danny looked at Joe with new eyes. He'd been fighting since 1982 and had never seen defeat. He'd beaten drug barons in Panama, Saddam's elite units in the Gulf, warlords in Somalia. But the last operation in 2002 had changed everything. Afghanistan, night raid to capture a Taliban leader. Joe's team was perfect. 8 Rangers, best trained, tested in the toughest operations. Everything was going as planned. Target captured, team withdrawing. But then everything went wrong. Enemy ambush, RPG fire, Kalashnikov sounds. Joe's team was surrounded. Martinez to all units. Joe had shouted into his radio. We're under heavy fire. We need air support. But help came late. Too late. Joe lost 3 men that night. 3 good soldiers, 3 family men. Joe had promised to bring them home, but he couldn't keep his promise. That night, Joe broke something inside himself. Command authority, medals, praise. None of it could bring his men back. A month later, he resigned. The Army tried to keep him, but Joe had made his decision. Why did you quit? Danny asked. Joe was silent for a long time. Then, I lost my men. 3 good soldiers. I had promised to bring them home. Danny understood. Every veteran knew this pain, the weight of losing friends. I lost 2 friends too, Danny said quietly. IED explosion. Our Humvee was blown up. I was in the back seat. They were in front. 1 meter was the line between life and death. The 2 worked quietly for a while. Shared pain had connected them. How did you cope after you came back? Danny asked. I didn't cope, Joe answered honestly. The first 10 years were hell. Drinking, fights, nightmare-filled nights. And I opened this shop. Working ... working eases the pain. Family? I had one. My wife Susan, my daughter Maria. But when I came home, I wasn't the same man anymore. Susan tried to endure for 3 years. Then she took Maria and left. I don't blame her. Danny heard the pain in Joe's voice. Lost friends, lost family. The real cost of war. Do you still talk to them? Maria calls occasionally. She's 28 now, a doctor. I'm very proud. But she keeps her distance. She has reason to be afraid of me. That evening, Danny took his truck, but came back the next day. He wanted to help Joe. 2 veterans started working together. For the first time in 20 years, Joe didn't feel alone. But on the 3rd day, everything changed. 3 men came to the shop. On motorcycles, in leather jackets, carrying weapons visibly. The townspeople were afraid of them. You're Joe Martinez, right? Said their leader. Joe stood up. He hadn't seen these men before, but he recognized their type. Trouble. Yeah, what do you want? This town is in our territory. You need to pay protection tax, $2,000 monthly. Joe looked at them calmly. This is my shop. I don't pay protection tax to anyone. The man laughed. Old man, nobody here can save you. No police, no sheriff. Either you pay or ... double quotes. Or what? The man pulled out a pistol from his pocket. Or bad things might happen, like your shop burning down. Joe didn't move. But Danny noticed the change in his body language. The old military posture was returning. I'm giving you 3 days, the man said. Money or consequences? The 3 got on their motorcycles and left. Danny looked at Joe. What are we going to do? Joe quietly gathered his tools. We're not going to do anything. This is my problem. Joe, those men are serious. They have guns, they outnumber us. Joe looked at Danny. For the first time, there was something different in his eyes, the warrior's eyes. Son, I have some skills too. I may have forgotten them, but they haven't disappeared. That night, Joe sat in his home. A small, simple house, 1 bedroom, living room, kitchen. There were no military photos on the wall, no traces of his past. But the basement told a different story. Joe went down the stairs, opened an old chest. Inside were things he hadn't touched for 20 years. Military documents, medals, photos. And most importantly, his weapons: M4 rifle, Colt .45 pistol, tactical vest, night vision goggles. Everything was still clean, maintained. Joe checked them every year, but never planned to use them. Now he had a plan. He cleaned the weapons, checked ammunition, visualized tactics in his mind. 20 years had passed, but muscle memory was still there. Movement patterns, teamwork, enemy analysis. Everything was coming back, but he couldn't fight alone. He needed help. The next morning when Danny came to the shop, he found Joe different. Straighter, more alert, more military. "Danny, I need to talk to you." "I'm listening. Those men will come back. And they don't just want money. These types want to take control. First money, then businesses, then the whole town." Danny nodded. "What are you planning to do?" "Wait." Joe raised his hand. "Don't get involved in this. This isn't your fight." "Joe, I'm not the only veteran here. This town is my home now, too. And I don't leave my friends alone." Joe studied Danny for a long time. The young man was determined. "Okay, but I have rules. You work under my command. You follow orders without question. And if things go bad, you run away." "Agreed," Joe smiled. For the first time in 20 years, forming a team felt good. "Then let's start. We need intelligence first. How many of those men there are, where they're staying, their weapon status." Danny asked. "How will we find out?" "You ask your questions. I find the answers." Joe had lived in this town for 20 years, but had never drawn attention. Now he would use this advantage. The gang members saw him as just an old mechanic. In the evening, he went to town center, ate at the diner, eavesdropped. The gang members were staying at the motel in town. There were 5 of them, heavily armed, involved in drug dealing. Their leader was a man nicknamed Snake. According to information from former military, he had violent crimes, had been in and out of prison several times. The others were criminal types with similar backgrounds. Joe observed how they moved, who they talked to, when and where they were. Old Ranger habits were returning. When he returned to the shop at night, he briefed Danny. 5 of them: Snake, Big Mike, Carlos, Tommy, and a new kid, Joey. They're staying in rooms 3 and 4 at the motel. They have weapons, but no training. They're undisciplined. What's the plan? Joe pulled out a map. They'll come tomorrow night. Here, at the shop, they'll try to wait for me. But I won't be there. Where will you be? Joe marked points on the map. You here, me here. We'll catch them in the middle. Danny was worried. Joe, if this plan goes wrong, it won't. 20 years ago, I beat worse men than these. These are just town bullies. But Joe was worried inside. 20 years was a long time, and he wasn't young anymore. At 10 p.m., everything was ready. Joe had taken position on the roof, M4 rifle ready. Danny in the back alley, radio connection open. The plan was simple. Gang members come, given a chance to surrender. If they open fire, intervene. At 10:30, motorcycle sounds came. 5 men stopped in front of the shop. Martinez! Snake shouted. Come out. Time to talk. Joe whispered into his radio. Danny, are you in position? Ready? Joe shouted loudly. I'm here. The gang members looked up. Joe was visible on the roof, but they couldn't see he had a weapon. Old man, where's our money? I told you. I don't pay protection tax. Snake pulled out his gun. Then we'll burn this shop down. Don't do that, Joe said calmly. Last chance. Get on your motorcycles and leave town. The gang members laughed. What can you do? Joe showed his M4 as an answer. The laser sight focused on Snake's chest. I'm a retired Army Ranger. I fought for 20 years. I'm telling you, leave. But Snake realized too late. Joe wasn't just an old mechanic. Snake panicked and opened fire. The bullet shattered the bricks next to Joe. Joe responded. His first shot knocked Snake's gun from his hand. The second hit Big Mike's leg. The third brought Carlos down. "Surrender!" Joe shouted. But the remaining two men, Tommy and Joey, tried to escape. Danny came out from behind, stopped them. "Hands up! Don't move!" After 30 seconds, all 5 gang members were on the ground. None were dead, but none could move either. Joe came down from the roof. He looked at Danny. "Good job, soldier." "You too, Commander." Police sirens were heard. Danny hadn't called. Joe hadn't called, but the townspeople had called. Now nobody wondered who Joe Martinez was. The next morning when Joe opened his shop, everything was different. The townspeople looked at him with different eyes. He was no longer just the quiet mechanic. He was the protector. Sheriff Peterson came. "Joe, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "Those men were wanted by the FBI. They had crimes in 3 states. You caught them." Joe nodded. "We defended ourselves." "I know. But the FBI wants to talk to you. They'll ask questions about your past." Joe knew the thing that had kept him hidden for so long was over. But he didn't care anymore. Okay, when the FBI agents came, Joe was ready. They verified his identity, checked his military records. They called his former commanders. Everyone said the same thing. Joe Martinez was one of the best Ranger commanders. "Why did you come here, Joe?" asked the lead agent. "To hide." "But I'm not hiding anymore." A week later, while Joe was working in his shop, an unexpected visitor came. A beautiful woman, 28 years old, in doctor's clothes. "Dad?" Joe dropped the wrench in his hand. "Maria, his daughter." "Maria ... How did you get here?" "I saw the news. Retired Ranger saves town. I knew it was you." Joe felt his eyes fill up. "I'm sorry, Maria. I'm so sorry for everything." Maria hugged her father. "Dad, I forgave you. A long time ago. I just ... didn't think you were ready." "I'm ready now. I can see that." Danny came out from the corner. "Sorry, I didn't want to disturb." Joe smiled. "Maria, I want to introduce you to Danny. He's also a veteran, a good friend." Maria looked at Danny, young, handsome, respectful, and she saw the approval in her father's eyes. "Nice to meet you, Danny." "Same here, ma'am." Joe watched the two. Maybe he'd lost his family, but he could build a new one. 6 months later, Mesa Springs was a different town. Joe was no longer just a mechanic. He was the town's unofficial protector. Sheriff Peterson had offered him a deputy sheriff badge. Danny continued working at the shop. Maria visited frequently. Joe had noticed her interest in Danny and approved. One evening, while the 3 were having dinner together, Maria announced, "Dad, I've decided to open a practice here. The town needs a doctor." Joe smiled proudly. His family was returning. "And Danny," Maria blushed. "We've started dating." Joe looked at Danny. "Take good care of my daughter, soldier." "I promise, Commander." Joe looked out the window. Mesa Springs was quiet, peaceful, safe. That's how it should be. Sometimes warriors retire, thinking the war is over. But war never ends. Only the front changes. Joe Martinez's new front was this town. And this time he wouldn't lose. Have you ever known someone like this? Someone who seemed ordinary, but actually had an extraordinary past? Someone who lived quietly, but became a protector when needed? Share their stories in the comments. And if this story touched you, like and subscribe. Because at the Untold Stories, no hero is forgotten. See you in the next story.